everybody. So I posted a video a little while ago of these bookmarks I made, and I had a little bit of response on people wanting me to show how I made them, so that's what we're doing today. They're fairly simple to make. You'll just need a few things to get started. First, you're gonna need some kind of board to tape your bookmarks down to. You could also just use the work surface that you're sitting at. I have these pre-cut bookmarks. I just ordered them on Amazon. You could make these yourselves. Just cut some strips of watercolor paper to the size you want, round the corners off, and then punch a hole in them, and you've got your own bookmarks. You'll need some tape. This is masking tape, just to tape them down and get clean borders. I have some watercolor paints. These all are Paul Rubens mica translucent watercolors. You're also going to need some ink for stamping. This is just an old ink pad, but I refilled it with this ink here. I ordered on Amazon. It's a lot cheaper when you order the refills and just add it to an old ink pad. I've got a blending brush, a watercolor paintbrush. This is a dagger brush. I think it's a 1/4 inch. I've got some stamps, just a few. I went through and picked out some I thought I might want to use. These are acrylic stamps. And some blocks to adhere them to. I've got a few stencils. And some water for your watercolor paints. A roll of paper towels. So now I'm gonna lay my bookmarks down. And then I'm going to tape them to my board. This is gonna help your bookmarks to stay flat so they don't get super warped from the watercolor paints. And if you're using a board, you can pick this up and move it around so it's easier to work on, or you can tilt it so you get those really cool water running effects. If you tape it to your work surface, then you just won't be able to pick it up and move it. Might be a little harder to work on. Once you have them all taped down, you're gonna grab your watercolor paints and just give them a good spritz with some water. This is gonna help activate your paints so they're more creamy and easier to work with when you're ready to paint with them. And you're just gonna set them down and let them absorb that water. I'm just gonna grab a couple colors that I like. You can use any colors you want, depending on what stamps you've picked to use. For this first bookmark, I'm just gonna do some little swoops to look like water rings or bubbles. Just placing these randomly. For this next bookmark, I'm just gonna mix up this teal-y blue kind of color. And I'm just going to apply it in a wash down my bookmark. Now while that's still wet, I'm going to add a little bit of that blue from the previous bookmark into it. This will just give me a gradient wash. For this third bookmark, I'm just mixing up a light pink and a dark pink. And I'm I'm going to do the same gradient type wash, just in different colors this time. Starting with my light pink and dragging it down, rinsing my brush, and then adding the darker pink. For my fourth bookmark, I'm doing the same gradient wash, but I'm using a golden yellow and an orange this time. Once you have your washes down the way you want them, you can let it dry, or I'm impatient, so I have a heat tool here, just taking it over each bookmark until it's not shiny anymore. Okay, now that it's nice and dry, you can do your stenciling next. I'm gonna get my ink pad out and my blending brush and just rub my brush on the ink pad to get some ink on it. I'm gonna take my stencil and figure out how I want to lay it down and then gently rub the ink onto the paper where the stencil is not protecting it. Then I'm gonna move down to this last orange bookmark and add some stenciling to it too. Now to do some stamping. I'm gonna pick a couple stamps out and put them on my block and then just kind of figure out where I want to place them. Once I've got that figured out, I'm going to put a little bit of ink on my stamp and push it down. You don't want to push too hard because then you'll kind of distort your image with these acrylic stamps. But you definitely want to push hard enough to transfer the ink to the paper. Now this next bookmark is pretty simple. I just have a moon phase stamp and I'm going to ink that and place it right in the middle of the bookmark. Now for this last bookmark, I'm going to use a few different stamps. On this one, I'm going to block off some of the space because I don't want the first stamp to transfer to that. So I'm just using a scrap piece of paper and laying it where I don't want the stamp to transfer. Then I'm going to lay my stamp down on top of that piece of scrap paper. I'm going to remove my paper and then add the second stamp in the middle. Now, once these are dry, you can remove your tape. I'm using my heat gun here just to soften up the tape so it comes off a little easier and doesn't tear my bookmarks. And while I'm doing this, I'm trying to pull it at an angle instead of at a 90 degree. That kind of just helps it not to rip. And there you go, your bookmarks are done. At this point, you can seal them with a little bit of wax medium to keep the watercolors from getting messed up. I like to save the tape that I pulled off sometimes if it's got a cool, interesting design. Use it as washi tape in my journals. I usually just wrap it around a glue bottle. I hope you guys had fun with this video today and it helped you learn how I like to make these bookmarks. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and don't forget to give me a like and a follow.